Good evening and welcome. This is News First Primetime News. I'm Shahin Rampati. Let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
12 new judges appointed to the High Court. Muslim political representatives commend Prime Minister's decision on COVID-19 victims' burial. The age-long Crudia zelanica tree in Daralua, which was on the verge of being uprooted, ordained by the Mahasangha. Will Ranjan Ramanayaka be allowed to attend parliamentary sittings? Will the SLPP turn its back on Vimal Veeravansa?
අපේ පක්ෂයෙන් අඩු ගානේ ප්‍රාදේශ සභා මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙක්ටවත් අපි විනය කඩ කිරීමට ඉඩ දුන්නේ නැහැ. අපි වහාම ඉවත් කළා දැන්.
Now for those stories in detail. One of the oldest trees in the country belonging to the rare plant species Crudia zelanica, which was discovered in Daralua facing the threat of destruction, was ordained this morning.
Terrors representing the National Bhikkhu Front arrived in Daralua and ordained the rare tree in order to preserve it. The extremely rare tree is growing within an area of the section from the Kadawatha to Mirigama on the Central Expressway, and it was previously proposed to relocate the tree to a separate location due to the construction of the expressway.
අපට දැනෙනවා මේ අලුත් පත් වුණු ආණ්ඩුවත් එක්කලා අපි කාටත් රටට ආදරය කරන.
As the Mahasangha and the people who love this country, we have been forced to watch the environmental destruction caused by this newly elected government. We have to unite to save the country from this government. This tree was discovered in 1861, which means this type of tree can be considered the oldest of its species in the country.
කාවේ තියෙන පුරාණික පෞරාණික එකම පණුකරද ගහ හැටියට සලකනවා.
Meanwhile, the Department of National Botanic Gardens said the Crudia zelanica tree has been conserved in several places, including the Henarathgoda Botanical Gardens in Gampaha.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් Crudia zelanica කියන්නේ මේ legume එකක්. ඒ කියන්නේ nitrogen fix කරන එකක්.
Usually the legume plant Crudia zelanica is a strong storer of nitrogen. The other important benefit of the tree is that it has been used for firewood in villages back in the day. We have found trees like this in the Gampaha district, which means you find trees like this in other places in lowlands in the wet zone. Even at a botanical garden in Gampaha, we have 3 fully grown trees. In addition to that, we have collected seeds of this tree and planted them in locations such as the Peradine Botanical Gardens, from which we have retrieved seedlings. We have to state that although the IUCN Red List states the species only exists in Sri Lanka and it is threatened, actually it is not.
ශාකයක් කියලා කිව්වට ඒ විශේෂයට තර්ජනයක්, ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක වන්ද වීමේ තර්ජනයක් නෑ කියන එක තමයි අපිට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
බෞද්ධයෝ හැටියට කල්පනා කරොත් ශ්‍රී මහා බෝධීන් වහන්සේට
If we think as Buddhists, the Sri Mahabodhi is the historical tree. There might be other Bo trees in Sri Lanka or around the world. We never cut and destroy the Sri Mahabodhi. This is the tree that has been protected since 1861 to now.
ආරක්ෂා කරගෙන යන එකම ශාකයේ හැටියට සැලකනවා.
ශ්‍රී මහ බෝධිය අපට වටිනවා.
The Sri Mahabodhi is a historic heritage. Tissues from this tree have been used to plant many trees, but the biological identity and features found in this tree cannot be found in trees in other botanical gardens, which means the uniqueness of this tree cannot be found in others.
තියෙන්න හේතුවක් නැහැ.
A private company has requested permission to airlift the tree to Muthurajavela to be replanted. We can airlift this tree to be replanted in a land owned by us in Muthurajavela. It can be conserved without even cutting a branch. We came forward to transplant this tree at Melwatha, owned by us in Muthurajavela. In that instance, the Director General of Wildlife informed the Secretary of the RDA regarding this.
මේ ගහ යම් විදියකින් වෙනස්
There is a risk of this tree being transplanted in a different location. If any party is transporting this tree, they need to take complete responsibility. Muthurajavela is a wetland. Experts have clearly stated that this plant is not suitable to be planted in a complete wetland.
පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් පෙන්වලා දීලා තියෙනවා. මේ ශාකය තමයි
This tree is reported to be the most rare and longest naturally surviving plant of its species. This plant must be subject to in situ conservation, where the tree has to be protected here, and through this its surrounding biodiversity linked with this tree can also be preserved.
සම්බන්ධ කරලා තමයි ආරක්ෂා කර ගැනීම වැදගත් වෙන්නේ.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa responded to a question raised by MP S.M. Marikar in Parliament today on whether Sri Lanka will grant permission for the burial of COVID-19 victims.
Yesterday, Minister Sudarshini Fernandapille, responding to MP Rohana Bandara, said that COVID-19 does not spread through water. If that is the case, we would like to know from the Prime Minister if burials will be allowed for COVID-19 patients.
ප්‍රශ්නෙට මට කියන්න දෙන භූම දාන කරන්න ඉඩ දෙනවා.
හරි. කතානායකතුමනි මේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමාගෙන් Honorable Speaker, I am prepared to direct a message regarding the light railway project which is being implemented from Malawi. Be that as it may, I thanked him for granting permission for the burial of COVID-19 victims agreeing with scientific reasons. Honorable Prime Minister, you mentioned that burials would be allowed in the country. On behalf of the people of this country, especially the Muslims, I thank you.
Posting on Twitter, MP Rishad Badiuddin has also extended his gratitude to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The tweet read that the MP hopes the statement made by the Prime Minister is implemented expeditiously.
Meanwhile, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has commended Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's announcement on the burial of COVID-19 victims. The Pakistani PM said in a tweet, quote, "We welcome Sri Lankan PM Mahinda Rajapaksa's assurance given in Sri Lankan Parliament today, allowing Muslims to bury those who died from COVID-19." End quote. The US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, tweeted, quote, "Welcome media reporting on PM's announcement to end mandatory cremation of COVID-19 victims." End quote. The tweet further said, implementation of a revised practice that is in line with international public health norms and respects religious rights is a positive action.
Also making headlines this evening, Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardene has informed Parliament that Ranjan Ramanayake will not be allowed to occupy a seat in the House until a court order is issued on the matter.
The opposition leader knows that this matter has once again been put forward before court. In the interim, we have received a directive stating that a status quo must be maintained. Therefore, there will be no changes. We will issue the relevant decision when the situation changes.
status quo එක maintain කරනවායි කියන්නේ? status quo එක maintain කරනවායි කියන්නේ Ranjan.
What do you mean by maintaining the status quo? Maintaining the status quo would mean that Ranjan Ramanayake can continue to hold his parliamentary seat. As a country, we have signed the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. An enactment legislation has been passed with regard to the covenant as an act of parliament. The provisions under this law states that appeals can be filed against any punishment. The Supreme Court can take the relevant decision. The court will decide on the future of Ranjan Ramanayake's parliamentary seat. Until then, Ranjan Ramanayake will have to be granted the privileges that have been offered to Premalal Jayasekara to attend parliamentary sittings. Therefore, I wish to request you to implement the verdict of the appeal court in a proper manner.
අව්‍යාචනාධිකරණයේ තීන්දුව හරියට ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න. Maintain the status quo.
Yes, that is what I am trying to do. That is what I am trying to do.
නෑ, එතකොට එහෙනම් ඔබතුමා උත්තරේ දෙන්න. හෙට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගේනවද රංජන්ව?
නෑ, හෙට ගේන්න බෑ.
ඇයි?
හෙට ගේන්න බෑ.
ඇයි ගේන්න බැරි?
අපිට උසාවියේ තීන්දුව අවසන් කරන තුරු හෙට ගේන්න බෑ.
ඔබතුමා ප්‍රේමලාල් ජයසේකර මැතිතුමාට මේ සභාවට එන්න ඉඩ දීලා තියෙනවද?
ඒ දුන්නේ උසාවි තීන්දුවෙන් පස්සේ.
ඔබතුමා උසාවි තීන්දුවට යැපෙන පුද්ගලෙක් නෙවෙයි.
You are not a person who has to depend on court orders. Andru Bandaranayake has set a good example. The activities taking place in Parliament are happening at your discretion, but you can't act according to your whims and fancies and treat Premalal Jayasekara and Ranjan Ramanayake differently.
එහෙම සැලකිලි දෙකක්
ඔබතුමා ඒකයි කරන්නේ. ඒ අසාධාරණේ කරන්න එපා.
ඔබතුමා
අසාධාරණේ කරන්න එපා.
මොන විදිය කටයුතු කරත් එහෙම අසාධාරණ තීන්දුව මෙතන අරගෙන නැහැ.
The opposition leader knows that this matter has once again been put forward before court. In the interim, we have received a directive stating that a status quo must be maintained. Therefore, there will be no changes. We will issue the relevant decision when the situation changes. The Supreme Court will have to reconsider its existing verdict on Ranjan Ramanayake together with the international covenant signed by our country and then issue another verdict. The current status quo is that Ranjan Ramanayake has to serve rigorous imprisonment in line with the Supreme Court verdict. This is the status quo that you will have to maintain until the court issues a verdict. Until then, the status quo will not change.
It was you who began the culture of allowing a convicted murderer to attend parliamentary sittings by permitting Premalal Jayasekara to do so. It was you who began this new culture. It was you who allowed a convicted murderer to enter parliament. Therefore, you can continue this culture.
We're now going for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
Struggling to find reliable plumbers, electricians, gardeners and other service providers? Bellboys got you covered.
Welcome back to the news. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa handed over letters of appointments to 12 High Court judges at the Presidential Secretariat today.
District Judges NK.DK Ainanayakara, R.L. Godavela, V. Ramakamalan, U.R.V.B. Ranatunga, D.G.N.R. Premaratna, Mahi Vijayveera and J. Trotsky were among the newly appointed High Court judges. Additional district judges S.H.M.N. Lakmali, W.D. Vimalasiri and I.P.D. Liyanage were also among those who received their appointment letters from the President. Colombo Chief Magistrate Mohammad Mihal and Senior State Counsel N.A. Suandurgoda were the other individuals to be appointed as High Court judges.
Various views were expressed in Parliament on the report of the Presidential Commission that probed political victimization.
I wish to request you to table the report of the Presidential Commission in Parliament at least by tomorrow.
As the government, we have expressed our agreement to take part in a debate immediately after the report is received and tabled in Parliament.
It is the second Presidential Commission that will determine the punishments based on the report of the first Presidential Commission. The second commission only has a term of 3 months. They have been left with very little time to submit the report.
There are several matters concerning the police, the courts, the Attorney General's Department and the Anti-Corruption Committee that must be dealt with. Therefore, it is important for us too. I too was on their side, but I was involved in chasing away Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mahinda as Prime Minister for 58 days.
Firstly, the report of the Presidential Commission that has been approved by the President must be tabled in Parliament. The second is that a special Presidential Commission must be appointed, but the second recommendation has been implemented before the first. Where is that report? A special Presidential Commission has been appointed through Parliament, but the report must be tabled in Parliament. We wish to ask the Speaker as to what is happening.
වාර්තාව ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම ජනාධිපති කාර්යාලයෙන් අපිට ලැබෙන්න ඕන. අපිට ලැබුණාට පස්සේ අපි ඔබතුමාට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
මේ කැබිනට් තීරණය ඔබතුමාට ඕන විදිහට කරන්න බෑ. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ
ඔබතුමා ඉන්න අපිට ලැබුණු වහාම මේ වාර්තාව ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
එහෙනම් ඔබතුමා කොහොමද කොමිසම පත් කරන්නේ? ඔබතුමා කොහොමද කොමිසම පත් කරන්නේ?
පළමුව මේ කාරණේ, දෙවනුව මේ කාරණේ, තුන්වනුව මේ කාරණේ කියලා. එහෙම එකක් නැහැ නේ එකේ.
මේ බබා වෙන්න එපා කතානායකතුමා. මේක ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. ඉන්න. අපි එකඟ වෙලා නේ තියෙන ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
කඩිමුඩියේ තමයි මේව සේරම වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
Everything has taken place in a hurry. We have been told that a new report will be published without printing errors. We know that the tenure of the Commission ended in November or December. They had plenty of time to submit this report. Therefore, we are now wondering whether the report was published by another entity instead of the Commission.
Will the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana take disciplinary action against Minister Wimal Weerawansa? General Secretary of the party, Attorney-at-Law Sagara Kariwasam, expressed these views on the Pathikada program.
We did not allow even a member of a provincial council to violate our party's disciplinary principles. When such violations took place, they were expelled from the party immediately. Chairpersons of provincial councils have also been removed. The disciplinary framework applies to me as the General Secretary of the party and the Minister. Wimal Weerawansa's behaviour was a major issue even during the East Container Terminal matter. He is a member of the Cabinet. He formed a group with 10 political parties to stand against the sale of national assets, even after the Prime Minister clearly announced that the East Container Terminal would not be given to India. He tried to portray himself as the hero and the SLPP as the villain. This was not ethical.
Wimal Weerawansa is a minister who worked hard to bring the president to power. As the General Secretary of the SLPP, Sagara Kariwasam does not have the right to make such immoral statements, and we will stand against such unethical behaviour. Do not forget the past. The flower bud bloomed at the Abhayaramaya, and it may wither at the Abhayaramaya as well. What was the mistake Minister Weerawansa committed for him to seek forgiveness?
This has been Minister Wimal Weerawansa's practice even in the past. Back when Mahinda Rajapaksa was president, he claimed the then secretary to the finance ministry was an economic hitman. He is now attempting to create a dispute within the party. There is no owner of this government. This is a government that was formed with the support of everyone. If one is of the opinion that they are owners of this government, they are clearly wrong.
They actually care about the party. In my view, the statement made by Minister Weerawansa is not wrong. His statement reflected the expectations of the general public. However, certain factions are attempting to create a conflict within the party. There should be more leaders like Weerawansa in our country.
This is an attempt by the government to cover up the problems in the country by diverting the attention of the public. People cannot afford 3 meals a day. Instead of addressing such issues, the government is discussing irrelevant matters. This is nothing but an act staged by Wimal Weerawansa and Sagara Kariwasam. Such actions will not help our country to address concerns raised by the UNHRC. A majority of our country's assets are being sold to China. Allied nations of China are seeking to strengthen their ties with our country. The upcoming visit of Pakistan's Prime Minister is a perfect example of this.
හොඳ දිගුවක් තමයි හෙට අනිද්ද පාකිස්තානයේ රාජ්‍ය නායක මේ රටට ඇවිල්ලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ආමන්ත්‍රණය කරන්න පුවා වටපිටාවක් හදලා තියෙනවා.
Protests took place in the country demanding a solution to the problems of the people.
Small-scale fishermen staged a protest opposing the use of banned fishing nets in the seas off the coast of TRINCOMALEE. Our correspondent reported that the demonstration had begun at around 8 a.m. This is Sally Boat Pier, in which anglers can engage in fishing. If required, a fisherman can throw a net into the sea and then drag it towards the shore. It is banned to anchor boats at this location, to say the least. In such a territory, they are heading out to sea on a 40 or 25 horse-powered motorboat and engaging in fishing using nets.
40 horsepower engine 25 engine අරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා මෙතන බලහත්කාරයෙන් දැල් දානවා.
The wholesale fish market in TRINCOMALEE remained closed today as a gesture of support to the protesting fishermen.
The demonstration was held in Agunukhalapalassa today, demanding authorities to alleviate the burden imposed on the people as a result of the rising cost of living. The protest, which was held at the Agunukhalapalassa town, was organized by the Janatha Vimukti Peramana.
මෙච්චර බඩු මිල අහස උසට ගිහිලා තියෙනවා පොල් ගෙඩිය 130යි හාල් කිලෝ 98යි ජනතාවට ජීවත් වෙන්න බැරි තත්ත්වයක් උදා වෙලා තියෙනවා
බඩු මිල අන්තිම ඉහළට වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Cost of goods continue to soar. Green chilies cost more than 250 rupees. It is the same with rice and coconuts. The government has failed to address the problems of the people. The people are in despair. Our economic experts said that there is nothing to fear and that the people will be provided with a relief package from the 1st of February. The government only created a mirage. All they did was force the people into the streets ever since they came into power.
Numerous complications continue to arise when recruiting individuals for various job roles under the program to create 100,000 jobs. Recruiting new employees to the government-run farm in Untitled is currently underway. The current employees of the farm opposed the move today by climbing on top of a building, urging authorities to recognize them as permanent employees. We have been engaged as labourers here for nearly 27 years. They interviewed us twice based on the 2014 and 2019 circulars claiming we would be given appointments. We are only remunerated 700 rupees daily and earn a monthly wage of around 11,000 rupees. Today, 30 people included in the 100,000 jobs program have been assigned to work here for a different wage. We urge the President to resolve this. The junior staff attached to the ANURADHAPURA base hospital engaged in a strike for the second day today, claiming that recruitments have been made to the health sector, deviating from the due process.
We have continued this action and have progressed it towards an action where we apply for sick leave. We are opposing the move of recruiting people from the 100,000 jobs program to the ANURADHAPURA base hospital, disregarding interview processes.
Removal of STF personnel from MP M.A. Sumandiran's security detail was debated in Parliament today.
It was I who removed the MP's security as the Minister of Public Security. He participated in the protest, defying the orders of the police and the court. We cannot provide security for someone like that. If he is actually threatened, he shouldn't be participating in protest where there are 2,000 to 2,500 people. If nothing happened, even at a situation like that, it means that the MP does not have those threats anymore. That is why his STF security was removed from him. If the MP is actually threatened, he should know to take care of himself. A few months ago, MP Sumandiran left his STF security detail outside and visited a terrorist who killed those in the Special Task Force and the army. That is when we decided to remove the STF.
In that case, Karuna and Pillan also killed police and army officers. You have provided security to terrorists. How many things have you given Pillan? There are army officers standing around Pillan and we are ashamed every time we see it. Who is Pillan to stand among army officers with his hands tied behind his back? Sumandiran has always spoke against terrorists. We disagree with the fact that you removed Sumandiran's security detail based on one incident. It is very unfair. If he is actually threatened, he should be given special security. So I asked the minister in charge of police if there is a requirement to give extra security to MPs. I request you to do so, disregarding his political stance.
Now I am sure the Minister in charge of Public Security is quite aware that there are intelligence reports regarding threats to the life of Mr. Sumandiran. That is why special protection was given to him. We all know the stand of Mr. Sumandiran and his political stand. There are certain extremist elements on both sides who are opposed to him. So there is a real danger, and I don't think this kind of impulsive decision should be taken just because he took part in a procession where legitimate political issues were raised.
I heard the Honourable Minister for Public Security say that I have violated court orders. I want to clarify that. It has to be against named persons. There is no court order against me anywhere. I have not violated any single court order. Even if I did, that is no reason to remove the special security accorded to me. If there is threat to my life, and you yourself have said it, then it is incumbent on the state to provide that special security which you deemed necessary.
A debate ensued in Parliament today between TNA MP Shanikyan Rasamanikam and Minister Ali Sabri.
One of your main election promises was that the release of these political prisoners will be done. This was done in the canvassing campaigns that was done in the north and the east. So my question is, why is there two laws? I mean, why is there two laws, one law for different people, and why aren't these cases being expedited?
As the Honourable Prime Minister very clearly explained, there are no political prisoners in this country detained anywhere. But there are few people who have been detained or their cases are pending, charged under Prevention of Terrorism Ordinance.
It's very ironic that the Justice Minister is responding to these questions when the Honourable Justice Minister's own community's issues cannot be resolved by himself and the Prime Minister with the Janasa issue. There were so many military camps throughout the north and the east. So I would say that that this government's primary slogan was establishing national security. So if this government is able to establish national security, I wonder why there is such a need for so many camps. But at the same time, why aren't we worried about setting up some camps in Colombo and Hambantota? Tamils and Muslims in this country are not the threat to this government in the near future. We are giving out plots of land to different countries in the south and in Colombo. So why don't we set up some army camps and security forces camps around those ports and districts as well? Because like I mentioned earlier, they are the threat for this government in the future.
The government has proposed a project involving a joint venture to develop the West Container Terminal of the Colombo port. This decision was made following the suspension of an investment project surrounding the East Container Terminal.
Various views are being expressed on the West Container Terminal of the Colombo port as the discourse on the East Container Terminal begins to decrease gradually. This was after a proposal was put forward before the Cabinet to develop and operate the West Container Terminal under a public-private partnership for 35 years involving the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and two entities named by India and Japan. According to the Cabinet proposal submitted by Ports and Shipping Minister Rohita Begunawardena on the 31st of January, the East Container Terminal and the West Container Terminal must be operating parallelly by 2023 to generate revenue for the Colombo port in line with the national policy surrounding ports. Accordingly, the West Container Terminal is expected to be developed across a land area of 64 hectares. Under the long-term plan of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, another special project is due to take place near the West Container Terminal. The proposed project involves the installation of two mounted LNG storage facilities on the West Container Terminal. The basic policies for the future promotion of liquefied natural gas as a fuel in the country have already been formulated in the country. Accordingly, the supply of LNG may create profit-generating opportunities for the nation. But the Indian Express newspaper reported that India has not yet made a decision on the Colombo Port's West Container Terminal that provides up to 85% of investment opportunities instead of the East Container Terminal.
Meanwhile, Bloomberg media outlet reported that several Chinese financed power plants that had been built in Pakistan to solve electricity shortages have resulted in a surplus that Islamabad cannot afford. Therefore, Pakistan has planned to ask China for relief on payments for power projects that were financed by Beijing over the past 8 years.
The Education Ministry has said that schools in the Western Province will not be opened on the 15th of this month as announced previously. These remarks were made during a media briefing by Education Minister Professor G.L. Pieris today.
We held several discussions on reopening schools while ensuring the safety of students. Health authorities have recommended schools to be reopened on the 15th of March after the ordinary level examinations. Accordingly, we have decided to reopen all schools in the country, including the Western Province, on the 15th of March.
The Colombo Stock Exchange closed on a negative today, with its benchmark index losing 2.9% compared to yesterday.
The all-share price index closed 231 basis points lower to close at 7,732.43, while the more liquid S&P SL20 index lost 82.22 basis points to close at 3,087.7. Daily turnover reached 5.1 billion rupees today. The all-share price index, which was over 8,500 on the 1st of February, has declined by 10% since the beginning of this month. The ASPI recorded its highest daily points drop in history on the 2nd of February 2021 with a drop of 561.75 points within the trading day.
And that is a wrap of News First Primetime News tonight. Alongside our interpreter this evening, Taraka Gabriel, I am Shahin Rampati. Good night and take care.